Do you love scrapbooking, but you struggle with writing the perfect text to go with your photos? Maybe you get stuck trying to summarize a memorable trip or highlights from your childhood, or even scrapbooking about your ancestor. If that sounds familiar, you're not alone. Journaling is one of the most challenging parts of scrapbooking. But what if I told you that AI language models can help you write your story quickly and effortlessly? Howdy, welcome to the Write Your Family History channel. My name is Devin Noel Lee, a published family history author who wants you to learn how to quickly write non-boring family histories to share your legacy with your loved ones. You don't have to be a trained author to write a family history. So join me as I teach you how to turn names, dates, and places into enjoyable narratives. In this video, I'll show you how I used AI tools to create text for my scrapbooks. When I created a scrapbook about my childhood, I first started out by using StoryAssist by Storied. I simply made a few selections. Happy, the narrator is me. The story is going to be about my Letterman jacket. I know, teenage years and childhood. And then I added a few sentences or details about my Letterman jacket. You do not have to have full sentences like my jacket had numerous letters, 1 for future homemakers of America, 3 for band, 2 for color guard, and 1 for dance. It's a rather long detail. You can have a short bulletin such as, I earned my jacket my freshman year. That's a brief enough bullet point. You don't have to fill out all 5. You can do 3, but let me show you what happens when StoryAssist takes these prompts and turns it into a story. So I go up to the top and I click Generate Draft. As I zipped up my senior Letterman jacket, I felt a rush of nostalgia. The faux leather sleeves adorned with patches from countless competitions that told the story of my high school journey. I earned my first letter in Future Homemakers of America as a freshman. Wait a minute, how did I figure that out? Because I don't remember saying my first one was for Future Homemakers of America, but it figured it out. And from there, the letters poured in. 3 for band, 2 for color guard, and 1 for dance. Each letter was a badge of honor, a testament to dedication. I smiled, remembering how my mother tirelessly sewed each pat, her fingers often cracked and bleeding. If you've earned it, it's going on your jacket, she'd insist, her determination echoing in my heart. I like that because with my mom being deceased now, I like that, her determination echoing. That's great verbiage. I had once hung my solo and ensemble medals from the jacket's collar. Actually not from the collar. It would be from the jacket's front panel opposite my FH, Future Homemaker letter, okay? That makes more sense. But they became too heavy, a weight that didn't quite match the joy I felt wearing it. Today, as I walked through the school halls, I felt pride swell within me. The jacket wasn't just fabric, it was a tapestry of memories, friendships, and the unwavering support of my mom, reminding me of every step I took in this incredible journey. Oh, the last part about my mom, that choked me up just a little bit. The part about as I walked through the halls and felt this pride swell within me of tapestry, that I don't like that too much, which is okay because you can come in and with StoryAssist. It is to assist you, not be your total voice in writing. So this was a very handy tool to help me write the stories I needed for my scrapbook journaling. StoryAssist was quick and often added a few more details that I hadn't thought of, which is such a big help. And as you saw, it kind of choked up a little bit with some of the phrases it used. I was surprised that it figured out my first letter was from FHA because I had one from dance. Why didn't it pick that one? I don't know. Maybe it decided it was the first one because it was the first one in the list and I subconsciously put it first. I don't know, but I was really impressed. To learn more about using StoryAssist by Storied, be sure to check out my video, which is linked in the description box. Now, unfortunately, just like with design flexibility to make the pages pretty, I eventually needed more flexibility for my journaling than what Storied had to offer. I would get frustrated with the editorializing, summarizing at the end. There was a couple more things that I would want Story to do, but that's a me problem. That's not a StoryAssist problem, and it's not something you can't overcome. But of course, I'm persnickety, so don't take that as a criticism of StoryAssist and decide not to use it. But if you're persnickety like me, here's what I had to do next. Actually, while I was editing this video, I thought you might want to see the finalized scrapbook page. And here it is. On the left, you have the journaling block, and then it bleeds from left to right with all of the pictures. Let me know what you think of the scrapbook page in the comments below. Next, I turned to ChatGPT, Claude, and Microsoft's Copilot Bing. You could use other tools as well, but these are the ones I'm most familiar with. While working with these tools, I discovered a few tips that help make writing scrapbook journaling so much easier. The first thing I learned was the limits of AI when writing journaling text. To tell artificial intelligent language model tools what to write, you often have to tell the models how to write. Write like a children's novelist. In this case, write a journaling block if you're a children's novelist and the topic is that you're afraid of the movie E.T. Or write like a sportscaster. In this situation, you're talking about a brief block of text for a scrapbook page about when you swam under a minute in the 100-meter backstroke. And there it is, folks, a moment of pure swimming history as we witness an absolutely electric performance in the 100-meter backstroke. Pretty amazing, but it might not be you. When I asked a language model to write like a teenager in the 1990s and gave it a few details to include in the story, the results were not quite what I expected. I mean, I thought I was specific enough. I said the age of the writer, a teenager, and a time period, the 1990s. But I'm still too broad because the spectrum of what constitutes a teenager in the 1990s is still too vague. Let me show you what happened. So I said, write like a teenager in the 1990s. The topic is beginning of freshman year at Kempner High School in Sugar Land, Texas. I gave it a few details to include, and this is what came out. OMG. I don't think OMG was something we said in the 90s. I think that's more a texting culture, and we didn't start texting until maybe the late 90s or even just the early 2000s. Anyway, we're already off to a bad start. So first day of high school was totally nerve-wracking. Mom drove me to Kempner in her station wagon. I never told you she drove me in a station wagon, and I never told you my mom drove me. In fact, we had a Ford Bronco too. Oh my gosh, this is so wrong. And I wasn't embarrassed by my mom driving me. We had a really cool Bronco too. It felt like we were driving forever, half an hour through absolutely nothing but cows and more cows. Okay, so yes, my school was in farmland, but I don't use the word that much. Do you see what the problem is? Now, I would say, seriously, who built a high school in the middle of a prison farmland? Yeah, that sounds more like me from back then. Susan and Summer met me at the front door, and we were all freaking out about our outfits. No, we weren't. We were in band, and it was summer in Texas because we started in August, so we were in T-shirts and shorts, and nobody cared. I still had my spiral perm growing out. Major mistake and wasn't sure if I should go full grunge with flannel or try something else. Wait a minute. I told you I was trying to give up my heavy metal days. How did you go to grunge? Okay, so do you get the idea? First of all, ChatGPT did not do as good a job as StoryAssist, but I'm also trying to say, hey, talk like a teenager from the 90s, and we're just really struggling. What could I do if the language models can't do what I'm trying to accomplish or fabricate details? Well, first we can revise things no, my mom had a Bronco too. I really hated grunge music, which might come up later again in this video. Instead of assigning them roles, I would really need to give them a task. I would say, write a brief journal entry that includes these details and then give those bullet points one more time. the prompt would be more specific. And once the entry is written, I could try to say, revise the journal entry and write like somebody specific from the 1990s. Perhaps I want to say, take on the character of Sabrina Spellman from Sabrina the Teenage Witch. So let's give that a try and see what happens. So I told Claude AI what they had gotten wrong in the previous story, and it made corrections. And then I said, hey, write more like Sabrina Spellman, which I just mentioned. And it's changed it from a scrapbooking entry to a diary entry, but I could just take that off. Notice that today, my first day at Kempner High School, and while it wasn't exactly magic, unlike some other parts of my life, it was definitely an experience. Okay, so if I continue reading this text, it takes out my perception of what a California Valley girl would say and makes it more common to the way Sabrina spoke. But notice it's incorporating aspects of magical, it's incorporating Salem, the cat from the show, and so forth. So it got the tone right, but it did exactly what I was afraid of. It would incorporate details as if Sabrina wrote it. And yeah, I get that. So sometimes you have to get the AI models to go in the direction of the voice you want, but you're still going to have to modify and take out things that don't apply. I don't have a cat named Salem, and I don't have magical powers. But at least the voice was more like me in the 1990s. So much improved. You need to be more specific in how you want the tone to appear. One thing you could do is, now that I have used Kindex, as I talked about in my other channel, to transcribe my journals, I could actually say, hey, AI model, I want you to learn my voice from when I was in the 1990s. Granted, this is me writing and I speak differently than I write. I'm a little more formal in my writing than I am in my casual conversations, but get to know how I spoke and then give it the prompt. Hey, write about the first day of freshman year at my school, so on and so forth. Now, while it's best practices not to ask the AI models for things that can be generated from a browser search, sometimes you have to start asking for lists, which ChatGPT and the other AI models are very, very good at. And once you have the list, you can ask follow-up questions in order to get to the context you want, and then say, hey, use these items from the list to write the scrapbook journaling entry. Or you might create a scrapbook page based on that list. There's lots of possibilities here. Here's an example of requesting a list. List popular children's movies from 1980 to 1985. What I really like that ChatGPT did is not only it said the list, but it gave me a little one sentence detail about the different movies, and then it organized it by year. That was a really great, and I didn't even have to ask for it. Now we do get to a problem of The Empire Strikes Back, The Blue Lagoon, and Popeye. Popeye, probably, that one's a hard to qualify movie. It wasn't exactly for young kids, and it wasn't exactly for the super teenage crowd. I guess you would classify it as a family movie. The Blue Lagoon is definitely a teenage movie, and then Empire Strikes Back, it was definitely popular for children my age. Then you get Raiders of the Lost Ark, The Fox and the Hound, and Clash of the Titans. Notice with children's movies, it's still a little too broad, so I'd have to go in and add some modifications. Now, a different AI model will give you a different list and different responses, although some overlap. Notice here that I said, by children, I mean the ages between 5 and 10, and we have some movies that are really better targeted to the younger audience. E.T., even though that actually was a nightmare movie for me, The Never-Ending Story, spot on. The Goonies, that's a little more teenager. Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, it's definitely a fun movie, but notice this movie is outside the range. It was in 1989. I wanted 1980 to 1985. And The Dark Crystal. Now, The Dark Crystal, if you're more towards the age of 10, it was more appropriate. If you're a 5, it was a little scary. I remember it being very scary. So this is a model that did a better job of making this list. So Again, you could actually go and just do a quick browser search and might have better results. But this is a starting point because you're eventually going to turn it into a scrapbook journaling prompt. Now, another thing you can do while making lists is ask for something specific. So here is provide a one-sentence description of the following cartoons popular during the 1980s, Thundercats and Jem. And notice it was able to do that no problem and put it together. Another list variation is to give a list of songs. Give ChatGPT or Bing or the other AI prompts, give them a list and then say, hey, I want the most popular lyrics. Or you could say, hey, I want famous quotes from movies. So here I said, hey, here are a list of the songs that I really enjoyed. Give me the famous lyrics for the songs. So Funky Town, no surprise. I want to take you to Funky Town. Physical, let's get physical. I want to get physical. Celebrate, good times come on. Jessie Girls, I wish I had Jessie Girl. Eye of the Tiger, it's the thrill of the fight. So these are kind of obvious, but if you had a more non-obvious song title, it could have been beneficial. But still, it's really fun because you're building out this list in the attempt to eventually get to the point where you are writing your journaling text. Here's another variation of I'm going to give an AI model a list and then I'm going to ask something follow up. So first I want a one-sentence summary of the plot for the following movies. Karate Kid, Daniel Russo travels to Okinawa with Mr. Miyagi to confront personal challenges and learn valuable lessons while facing new adversaries. I have a sentence for Top Gun, Dirty Dancing, Can't Buy Me Love, Coming to America, and others. Now I'm going to say, hey, what is a popular quote from each of these above movies? So from Karate Kid 2, the suggestion was, a man can't stand, he can't fight. A man can't breathe, he can't fight. A man can't see, he can't fight. That sounds like Mr. Miyagi. But remember, this is Karate Kid 2, which is why I didn't say wax on, wax off. Of course, Top Gun, who cannot forget, I feel the need for speed. Nobody puts baby in the corner. And Coming to America, good morning, my neighbors. I'll make you famous. If we don't have discipline, we don't have anything. Here is another fun prompt to try. Write a list of statements that respond to, you were a teen in the U.S. in the 1990s, if. Let the answers cover pop music, rock bands, country music, television shows, movies, fashion trends, and world events. So here's what ChatGPT said. It said you owned a collection of cassette tapes or CDs featuring these artists. Total Request Live on MTV was a daily ritual. You remember the impact of Kurt Cobain's death and the grunge movement. You have Alanis Morissette. It talks about Garth Brooks, Shania Twain, and Tim McGraw. TV shows, binge watch Friends and The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. I was a Fresh Prince fan and not a Friends fan. And TGIF with Family Matters, Full House, Boy Meets World. Yeah, that was my cup of tea. Movies, Titanics. And then I was like, oh, I watched Titanics in college. Oh yeah, the 1990s is high school and college. So yeah, that makes sense. Fashion trends, world events, you witnessed the fall of the Berlin Wall, and so forth. So that's a really good prompt. So let's go see what happens when we do it on a different AI model. So using Claude, I went ahead and I changed the prompt just a little. I said, let's do the 1980s, but we're going to do popular music. And I also said children's toys because I was younger in that era. So let's see how well it did. You spent hours creating the perfect mixtape, carefully timing the pause button between songs on your dual cassette deck and writing the song titles in your tiniest handwriting on the paper insert. Yeah. The Breakfast Club, your bedroom wall was plastered with photos from Tiger Beat featuring the New Kids on the Block, Duran Duran, and Madonna. Although mine was New Kids on the Block, Duran Duran, and hair band people. So that would have been Bon Jovi, Poison, and the like. You remember exactly where you were during the Challenger space shuttle disaster? Absolutely, I could tell you. So this is a fantastic list that's hitting things. It's doing it in a different format. You could prompt it, hey, put it in a list and group things by the different topics. And oh my gosh, I just saw this. The words "where the beast" were a legitimate part of your everyday vocabulary. So true. And now it's going to live rent free in my head again. Now, as ChatGPT gives you responses or any of the AI models, you can ask follow-up questions. Going back to the list about, you're from 1990s, if there was a list of the different bands. So I said, hey, well, in the 1990s, did hair bands like Bon Jovi, Poison, and Motley Crue, when did they fade and become replaced by grunge music like Pearl Jam and Nirvana? And ChatGPT gave me an explanation that I could say, oh yeah, that actually makes sense. So following that explanation about the decline of heavy metal music and the increase of the grunge band, I asked the AI model to write a brief paragraph explaining the decline of the rock bands. And then I said I hated the depressing grunge music and shifted to country music because it started to have a rock undertone. So let's see how ChatGPT did. It said in the early 1990s, the decline of rock bands like Bon Jovi and Motley Crue were largely influenced by the rise of grunge music, spearheaded by bands like Nirvana. Grunge music brought a raw and authentic sound that resonated with a new generation of music listeners who sought a departure from the polished and glamorized images of 80s rock. Nirvana's breakthrough album Nevermind sparked a significant turning point, captured the angst and disillusionment of the time. I don't remember having angst and disillusionment of the time, but I guess it was there. While some fans like me missed the rock band's upbeat and anthematic tunes, the darker, more introspective nature of grunge music struck a chord with many. Yeah, that's great, but I don't care. However, as the grunge music grew, its impact on the mainstream led a shift in the industry, and country music began to incorporate more rock tones. This change in country music allowed for a fusion of familiar rock elements while maintaining that drew fans like me. So it's doing a fairly good job of explaining. And so now I need to follow up and try to get ChatGPT to make it more brief, make it more targeted so that I can leverage that for how I felt about grunge music. And that leads us to the second thing I've learned. First, you need to be specific. And next, you need to refine and give feedback to the tool so it can help you capture what you want. So what I did was say, hey, good first attempt, shorten how much explanation is given to grunge music. Instead of naming Nirvana's album, mention the song Sounds Like Teen Spirit, because I don't remember the album being Nevermind, but I do remember the earworm of Sounds Like Teen Spirit. So I exclude the fact that many people like the angst and disillusionment because I was turned off by it. Now, if you liked Nirvana, that's fine, but I'm trying to get AI to reflect what my opinions were so that I can get better to a journaling block that I can then leverage into my scrapbooks. So it had this to say. Notice it's brief. Yay! Brief. In the early 1990s, the rise of grunge music, epitomized by the song Smells Like Teen Spirit by Nirvana, led to the decline of rock bands like Bon Jovi and Motley Crue. Grunge brought a new raw and depressing sound. See? That's my opinion, it's depressing, that resonated with many but turned off fans like me who preferred the upbeat and anthematic tunes of the rock bands. So true. As grunge music grew in popularity, I sought an alternative musical experience and shifted to country music, which started incorporating rock undertones without the traditional twang. So true. Offering a more appealing sound to my taste. And so when the AI models do well, give it a feedback. Much better, brief, and on point. Here's another revision, again, focused on music. Sorry, but music was my life back in that time period. So take whatever aspect that you're trying to write about and leverage it. So here, write a brief paragraph about my taste in music, changing from hair bands to country. And if you want to see what the result is, I will make sure I include it in the complimentary blog post. So make sure you check the link in the description for that. I think it's a little long for a scrapbook page, so I'd have to go back and say, hey, fantastic job, just make it brief. So once again, I'm going to show you the scrapbook pages that I created. First, I created the one about the rise of the grunge music and how I didn't like it. I put it on the same page as a dance pop music that was really popular, especially in my color guard music and my dance class. So that was a nice little pop culture reference. And then if we look at the 2-page spreads about country music, I include my shift away from hair bands and to country music. And then using all of the AMI models, I developed a list of the popular musicians of the day and the songs that they sang. So what happens if you want to write a scrapbook page about an ancestor? Typically, you're going to talk about specific events in their life. That's the model I tend to use in my scrapbooks about my ancestors. So in this case, I started with an extraction of all the details from Henry Geisler's death certificate. It's very, very boring. It's an exact transcription. And then I had said, write a narrative about the death of Henry Geisler using these details. So that's the prompt. And then using narrative storytelling, write about his death in a more interesting way without fabricating details. I'm trying to get ChatGPT or an English language model not to over editorialize, just stick to these facts because it's enough to help you write a story. So ChatGPT went through and gave me a nice story, right? So as the morning sun cast its golden rays over the quiet streets of Columbus, the somber air hung over the address inside the modest home. He lay still, his weathered face a testament to the life well lived. That's a little editorializing, but it's writing a narrative. It's making it non-boring, and I would have to go and modify what I feel should stay in the story and what should leave. So you're thinking, okay, that's actually looking kind of long. I don't want to write an entire scrapbook about his death. So what can we do next? Well, next we said, okay, revise what you wrote. You're a family history historian who's creating a scrapbook. You're talking about your ancestor death, and we'll have photos of their death certificate and headstone. Keep the interesting parts of the story so it's not dry names, dates, and places. So be brief, right? Okay. Notice now there's 3 brief paragraphs, and it said Henry's life came to an end on March 27th at the University Hospital in Columbus, Ohio, after a tragic series of events, and then it goes through. I like this. I can take it and drop it into an ancestor scrapbook for Henry and quickly write using AI. But remember, you always want to check and make sure the language models did not insert things that are false. You also want to make sure that while it does do some literary licensing, you want to make sure that it feels right. It's not overly glamorized or giving a false perception or a perception that you don't know if it's accurate. I don't know if Henry had a weathered face. I know he was on the heavier side, and so often when people are a little overweight, they actually have these soft, supple skin, not weathered, beaten face like some of the skinny minis and maxis are. So you might have to revise some of that, but at least it gives you an idea of how would I describe him at the time of his death, his physical appearance. So use it as a starting point and modify as you go. Now, I didn't actually make Henry's scrapbook page yet, but I wanted to show you a couple of scrapbook pages that incorporates details, a funeral card and a tombstone for my Grandpa Lou in his scrapbook page. And there is the journaling block on the left. Honestly, it would have been fun to have AI help me write this, but I made this book before AI was invented, so I was pleased with the results. Here's another scrapbook page. This one has a death certificate and a funeral program for my dad, as well as a brief journaling box, as well as a brief journaling block about his death. And once again, I think AI could have helped me write this a little bit better. It actually reads rather boringly. After using AI tools for nearly all of my childhood scrapbook text and also leveraging it for some family history scrapbooks, I then used AI models to write journal entries for my European travel scrapbook. And the reason I want to share this is because it can also help you in family history scrapbooks, because you will want to add setting and what you saw and experienced. And let me show you how I used the AI models to talk about my travels. Notice I'm saying I'm writing a travel memoir. Since we went to Europe, I want you to help me write some historical details about the places we visited. It said, all right, where did you go? The first thing I talked about is how Andy's cousin was a deputy chief of mission and stayed in a historical home. Do you know anything about it? And sure, it gives me this long list. And honestly, I can then take it and say, all right, revise this into a scrapbook in my style of writing. I'm 50 years old. I have a more mature language. I can give it samples of my writing, and it can turn it into a scrapbook journaling block. Then I went through and said, hey, we went to this museum. Can you tell me about the significance of this place? And the girl with the pearl earring. Fantastic. There we go. It gives me the significance. Now, I can revise it, make it brief, make it more of an experience rather than factoid. So it's less just pulling from a guidebook. Now, you need to be careful when hitting the enter button. So I was trying to tell ChatGPT, okay, I'm going to visit the Rijksmuseum. We took lots of pictures. I'm going to want you to write brief description of the collections I mentioned so that I don't overwhelm everyone in my travel journal. And then I hit enter and it said, all right, here we go. Dutch masters, Delft dweller. And I said, oh, oops, let me prompt you about the collection. But you're very much on target with brief. So it's a little more brief, but I did like how short the Dutch masters section was. And so then what I really liked about using these AI models to come up with some scrapbook text, especially about things that you visited and you don't really understand, or about something that your ancestor has and you don't really understand all the details. Start having a conversation with ChatGPT or Claude or Bing, and then say, all right, now that we have that, let's turn it into a journal entry, a scrapbook entry. So I started out, okay, there was a room with miniature ships. They were so detailed and must have taken a long time to create. What do you know about it? And sure enough, it gives me some details like, all right. And then I go to the next collection. Now, I like how it could combine, I don't know if the swords and the body armor were in the same room. I can't remember. But I'm saying, hey, this is what I saw. If they're two different rooms, combine them into one journal entry. And ChatGPT did a very good job. And it was one brief paragraph, and it can copy and paste and modify if I need. Now, here's one where it said, after touring the museum, we took a boat tour. The tour guide was not available in English, so we didn't have any idea what we were seeing. My son slept through most of the tour. I tried to take photos, but the blue tinted windows made it difficult. So I'm giving it information in order to write what I need it to tell me. After wrapping up our tour for the Rijksmuseum, we set off on a canal boat tour. Doesn't it sound very much like a travel journaling block for a scrapbook page? Hoping to soak up Amsterdam's scenery from the water. Unfortunately, the guy only spoke Dutch, leaving us to guess at the landmarks and history. I love it. My son, clearly unimpressed, managed to nap through most of it while I attempted to take photos through the window's unique color filter. What I'm hoping you're getting at, you can ask ChatGPT, Bing, and some of these other AI models to help you research the details that you need and then go and write the scrapbook blocks that you're hoping to use in your projects. Not only that, I'm going to recommend that you don't just copy and paste. Go and make sure that you have the emotions in there, because these AI models don't know how you really felt. You can kind of tell them how they felt, and it can get in the direction, but go back and add in the sensory details and then make sure it's accurate. Now, I'm in the middle of creating the scrapbook for my European vacation, but I wanted to show you how I am creating basically a blog book, a variation of a scrapbook. This one actually leverages more text and photos and less designs. So maybe scrapbooking and the pretty pages aren't your cup of tea, but a blog book, if you will, would better fit your needs. And a lot of times what I do is I just say which model I'm using and copy and paste the content directly right now. Eventually, I might revise this and put it into my own conversation, Or it would be kind of fun to demonstrate for some parts, I'm going to be using AI models, and for the rest, I'm going to add our own details. So we're adding photos. Everybody's going to have an opportunity to contribute. So this is my youngest son. Notice how he has his own words. I let him speak in his own words. I speak in my own words. I could use AI to improve it if I want. But then notice I'm going to Claude and I'm asking Claude to help me write a journaling block about our cousin's recommendation that we go to the Rijksmuseum. And then I add my own commentary. And here is the ship blog post that I actually like the way Claude did it versus ChatGPT. And the scrapbook paragraph is much shorter. It was on point. And then I can go ahead and do the same thing with the armor. I showed you in ChatGPT how it did it. I just thought Claude nailed it a little bit better. And so that's why I went ahead and did it there. And I went through other parts of the museum. It was really nice to use the different AI tools. And whenever I hit the free limits, I would go to the other one. And now, as you can see, this is a work in progress. But soon I will have this scrapbook, the photo and text, heavy on the text version. And then I can go back and I can make a pretty book with lots of decorations and take all of this text, throw it into ChatGPT and say, hey, make this brief. I hope this is a great tutorial to get you started thinking about can I use AI to help me write personal history and then also family history small projects. You can leverage a specific voice, be it yours or Sabrina Spellman or someone else. I really like that sportscaster one. I might try to use that in a few of my kiddos' scrapbooks about their swimming successes. However, I hope you've learned a lot. If you have any questions or you have any suggestions, be sure to drop them in the link below, and we'll see you next time. Remember to like the video, leave a comment, and subscribe on your way out. Then go write your family history.